Welcome to Wellness Big Sis the Pod, a by Maven media production, where we believe you deserve real education from real experts delivered in a way you can actually use. I'm Dr. Kelsy Vick, your board-certified orthopedic doctor of physical therapy, and this podcast was built for the girl who is done feeling overwhelmed and frustrated by conflicting health noise and is ready for something she can actually trust. Every week, we have honest, science-backed conversations about your health, your hormones, your brain, your body, and everything in between. No fluff, no fear-mongering, just the truth. Because understanding your body is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself. A table full of experts built for the curious girl who wants the truth. So welcome. Your seat is waiting for you. Your liver is doing about 500 jobs right now, and filtering alcohol is just one of them. The one most women don't know about is the more you regularly drink, the more estrogen that circulates, and the more vulnerable your liver becomes to that next drink. It's a compounding cycle, not just a one-off event. Alcohol doesn't just affect how you feel the morning after like a hangover. It affects the hormonal environment of your entire menstrual cycle. Your liver is doing about 500 jobs right now, and filtering alcohol is just one of them. The one most women don't know about is clearing your estrogen. And that connection changes how you should think about everything, from your cycle to your skin to your mood the week before your period. Welcome back to Wellness Big Sis the Pod. I'm your host, Dr. Kelsy Vick, a board-certified orthopedic doctor of physical therapy and a pelvic floor physical therapist. And welcome back to week 3 of our spring cleaning series. This April, we are diving into spring cleaning, but health and wellness, brain and body style. The first week we covered the lymphatic system, the system in charge of cleansing, cleaning, and your immunity for your body. The second week we talked about the glymphatic system that's similar to your lymphatic system, but for your brain. And this week, because our brains and sleep are so connected to our liver and alcohol, I decided what better time than to dive into the liver specifically today as our spring cleaning series, and the liver as it relates to our female physiology. As a general rule of thumb and an interest of mine, I like to keep a pulse on all sorts of different aspects on the wellness industry, including some of the more woo-woo aspects of the wellness industry. And that's not a knock on the people who promote more woo-woo theories and woo-woo techniques. I really do believe that those people are sometimes ahead of the game. Research can take 5 to 10 years in order to become public knowledge. So the people who are talking about all of these seemingly out there concepts in health and wellness are probably the ones that are influencing the research and ahead of the game when it comes to where science has not caught up yet when it comes to what we believe are certain out there things. I think some of these more woo-woo ideologies and the men and women promoting them are really at the forefront of what is going to become the next big thing. And with all of this input that I'm hearing from some of these more woo-woo out there experts, the liver is going to be a huge trend that we see over the next few years. From supplements to education to products, I think the liver is going to be the next sort of switch that we see. Right now, I'd say it's, gut health and the gut-brain axis. We have been hearing so much of that for definitely the last 5 years, maybe even the last 10. Gut health has been huge. And I think the next iteration of that is going to be talking about the liver and what we can do for our liver. As a side note, I have interviewed Dr. Felice Chan, who is a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, and she talks about how the spleen is a very vital organ in traditional Chinese medicine, and one that she looks at often in her practice. From a Western medicine perspective, the spleen was just sort of thrown into our education. We didn't necessarily prioritize that. So I'm very interested to see how wellness culture shifts from what we know about the gut-brain axis and gut health to more of these just thrown in their organs that we don't talk about nearly as much in Western medicine education, that they might talk about even more in Eastern medicine education, specifically with traditional Chinese medicine. So I love seeing that shift and getting to compare and contrast. And I know that there are surgeons and physicians and Western medicine practitioners who focus on the spleen and the liver. But from a general standpoint, from a general medical professional education. I think the liver and the spleen are two very slept on organs, which is why I wanted to cover the liver today. And of course, we can't talk about the liver without also talking about alcohol, but I never want this episode to sound preachy. I said this, I believe last week, I drink cocktails, I drink alcohol. I'm not coming at this from a I'm better than you should not drink alcohol standpoint. It's more of like, here's what your liver does. Here is how your female physiology affects the liver. Here's how alcohol influences that. Giving you that knowledge, that education, giving me that knowledge and education to make informed decisions on the actions and behaviors that I choose to participate in with that knowledge. And I think it's just a cool way for us to learn more about another system in our body and our female hormones that influence that system. So let's dive right in to the male-female perspective, specifically looking at alcohol. I know many of us have had that experience where we have one drink and it seems to hit us harder than it does our male friends or our male partners. And it's not necessarily a tolerance issue or a body weight issue, although it could be. There's also a biological difference. And unfortunately, that biological difference has real implications for how quickly damage accumulates in our female bodies. And this is the part that can get a little scary. Just like we covered last week, women have a higher risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. Women also develop more severe cases of alcohol-associated liver disease at lower levels than men. So let's look at some of the reasons why. One of the reasons is first pass metabolism. And you can think of this like your body's pre-filter of alcohol. Before alcohol gets fully absorbed, the stomach is supposed to take care of some of that filtering. It is supposed to pre-filter some of that alcohol, helping us to break down a portion of it. Women's stomachs in particular have significantly less of the enzyme that helps to do that. So our pre-processing systems are just a little less active than our male friend or our boyfriend or our husbands. This means that our livers get a larger, more concentrated load of alcohol to deal with. And the process of breaking down that alcohol produces a very toxic byproduct that's actually more damaging to liver cells than the alcohol itself. More alcohol arriving at the liver because we don't have as much of that enzyme that helps us pre-filter the alcohol in our stomach means that we have more of that toxic byproduct produced. And over time, that just compounds. There's also obviously hormonal differences in how our bodies handle alcohol. Research shows that regular alcohol use of one or more drinks per day is associated with elevated estradiol levels in women. Estrogen itself, the same hormone being elevated, also makes your liver more sensitive to alcohol-related damage. So it's twofold. The more you regularly drink, the more estrogen that circulates, and the more vulnerable your liver becomes to that next drink. It's a compounding cycle, not just a one-off event. There's also differences in liver immune cell activation between men and women. These are called Kupffer cells, but they're basically the immune cells of your liver. Their job is to scan everything coming from the gut and neutralize anything that shouldn't be there. Alcohol does two things that put these cells into overdrive. First, alcohol makes your gut more permeable, meaning more bacterial byproducts leak through the intestinal wall and flood the liver. Second, and this part is more specific to women, estrogen makes these immune cells more sensitive to those byproducts. So they overreact, trigger a full-on inflammatory response, and the liver takes collateral damage in the process. And because, as we mentioned before, alcohol raises estrogen, which sensitizes these Kupffer cells, these immune cells of the liver, which amplifies inflammation, it's the same compounding loop. Now, none of this means our bodies are fragile as women. It just means that they're different and that they handle alcohol a little bit differently. So we deserve knowledge and action that is based on some of those biological differences and how our bodies actually handle something like wine, beer, or a cocktail. The alcohol research that helped to set the guidelines for alcohol consumption was primarily based on men. So it's nice to have a little bit of knowledge on how our bodies are different to know how to adjust those guidelines for our female physiology. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into that hormonal liver connection, that connection that not a lot of people are talking about. The week before your period, when everything feels amplified, your PMS, your bloating, your emotional reactivity, your moodiness, your liver is actually a part of that story. It's responsible for helping to clear estrogen from your body And alcohol makes that job way harder in ways that can actually show up in your menstrual cycle. Alcohol doesn't just affect how you feel the morning after, like a hangover. It affects the hormonal environment of your entire menstrual cycle, the severity of PMS, the regularity of your ovulation, and the downstream effects on things like your skin, your mood, and that second half of your menstrual cycle. So, how does this work? One of the functions of the liver is to clear estrogen. However, when alcohol is present, the liver prioritizes alcohol. It sees it as more of a foreign invader or a toxic compound that needs to be taken care of over estrogen. So it prioritizes the metabolism of alcohol over that clearance of estrogen. Alcohol also increases the levels of estrogen in our body by stimulating the enzyme that converts androgens like testosterone to estrogen. So not only does alcohol increase estrogen, but it also deprioritizes the clearance of estrogen in the liver because the liver now favors alcohol clearance and alcohol metabolism over one of its normal functions of clearing estrogen. So, how might this present within our bodies? As we've talked about before, our menstrual cycles are cyclical. It is this rhythmic fluctuation and dance between the different hormones within our bodies. Going from high hormone phases to low hormone phases, it is this song and dance throughout our 28-day plus or minus menstrual cycle. When this dance becomes out of whack, we can start to experience menstrual cycle related challenges. So when the estrogen progesterone balance starts to shift more towards estrogen dominance, we can start to experience things like heavy and painful periods, bloating, fluid retention, mood swings, irritability, breast tenderness, and sleep disturbance. And the liver is only part of the story. Alcohol also affects us a little more centrally in our hormonal control center of the brain. Our brain sends signals to our ovaries to release certain hormones at certain times of the month based on that delicate balance, that delicate dance, and those hormone fluctuations that happen throughout our menstrual cycle. Alcohol interferes with that signal, which primarily affects the amount of progesterone produced in the second half of our cycle, which brings us back to that estrogen and progesterone balance, where alcohol is not only amplifying the amount of estrogen we have in our bodies, but it's also decreasing the amount of progesterone we have in our bodies, which only further pushes us a little bit more towards that estrogen dominance. So we end up with too much estrogen circulating because the liver is backed up because it's prioritizing alcohol, and not enough progesterone being produced because the hormonal signaling was disrupted from our hormonal control center in our brain due to that alcohol. The estrogen piece of this puzzle is well supported in human research. The progesterone and hormonal control center in the brain axis is more mechanistic and confirmed with animal studies. The biology makes sense, the animal data is consistent, so it's not a reason to disregard that mechanism in how alcohol works in our female bodies. But it is a reason to say maybe that the research suggests rather than the research actually proves this is happening. Here's something else I found fascinating about alcohol, our hormones as women, and when we drink alcohol during the different phases of our menstrual cycle. The timing of when you drink alcohol during your menstrual cycle actually matters. Research suggests the luteal phase, or that second half of your cycle, is when our overall hormonal environment, that song and dance between estrogen and progesterone, is more sensitive to alcohol's effects on estrogen. This is also when most women might report drinking. Your blood sugar's a little out of whack, you might have more cravings, you might have PMS symptoms where you turn to alcohol to help. So the timing of it all just compounds. You might be more likely to drink during the phase of your cycle where the effects of alcohol intensify on your hormonal system. This research is still developing, it's not perfectly consistent, but I thought it was an interesting point to bring up as something we might be finding in the future when it comes to when doctors, physicians, dietitians, and fueling professionals actually educate us more on the effects of alcohol on the female body. And I want to reiterate, this is not about fear. This is more just about information and sharing research and science with you so that you have an idea of why you might be feeling a certain way and being able to link it back. Oh yeah, that's right. I went to happy hour with my friends a little while back. So this might be why I'm feeling a little bit more out of whack at this certain time in my menstrual cycle. We've done a lot of episodes on the importance of friendship and community and the overall importance of friendship and community on our lifelong health and happiness. And it is actually the number one predictor of your health and happiness long term is the quality of your relationships. So I know I mentioned happy hour and it does relate to alcohol, but happy hour is also a way to enjoy time with friends. So I always try and approach some of this education and information with a good amount of balance and real life. But I wanted to throw that in there because I do feel like this can be one of those things that people take too far to the extreme. And it's something that I have taken too far to the extreme where I saw the effects of alcohol on my physiology and I would cancel any sort of alcohol related plans or plans surrounding alcohol because of the results it would have on my physiology. And you can totally do that. But for me, it was less of a balanced mindset and more of a restrictive mindset. So I found that if I can approach alcohol and cocktails in a community aspect, I feel better about it because I know that this is a way that I can spend time with my friends. This is a way that I can use food and drink to gather around a table, build community, build quality friendships, versus it being something that I have to restrict because my female physiology and my heart rate and all of that is going to freak out after one drink. So this education just helps me to be more mindful of when I do drink versus when I don't, and actually be able to make a choice that when I do have a cocktail, I know how it's affecting my body and I'm still okay with that risk benefit ratio, knowing that I will be able to build community and have fun at a happy hour with friends. Even though it is incorporating alcohol in some way, I can still feel good about that overall activity without feeling so guilty and ashamed that I'm having alcohol. But it's definitely a constant work in progress for me. Another component of alcohol that we've heard is that alcohol can help you sleep. Wind down to wind down is a very common phrase. And I feel like a lot of the time on planes, especially, a lot of people will drink alcohol or take a sleeping pill to help them crash out on the flight. So although it's technically true that alcohol can help you get to sleep, it doesn't necessarily help the quality of sleep that you have, and it actually can worsen the quality of sleep that you're getting. It also might be why you're waking up at 3 a.m. after having a few glasses, even if you don't remember having trouble sleeping. So alcohol primarily affects rapid eye movement sleep or REM sleep. And REM sleep is where our brain is working on emotional memory consolidation, the regulation of cortisol for the next day, a lot of the integration of some of the things that we've learned throughout the day. There's a lot that happens in REM sleep. Alcohol also disrupts slow wave sleep in the second half of the night, which, as we talked about last week, is when the brain's glymphatic system, or its primary waste management and cleansing system, is primarily active. So if you listened to our glymphatic episode last week, you know exactly why this matters. The people that get the best quality of deep sleep have some of the best clearance of some of the markers associated with Alzheimer's disease. So this deep sleep phase is super important, and alcohol affects that in a negative way. So alcohol as a sleep aid is one of the more pervasive, wellness trends out there, but it is also one of the trends that has a lot of misinformation around it. Alcohol produces sedation, not restorative sleep. And there's a meaningful biological difference between those two things. So even 1 to 2 drinks a few hours before bedtime meaningfully changes your sleep architecture in ways that affect your next day's mood, cognition, and energy, even if you don't consciously register that you had a bad night's sleep. So how can we actually support our liver, whether it's related to alcohol or our hormones? What can we actually do with what I am hypothesizing is the next big organ that a lot of people and supplement companies and products will be targeted towards? Your liver should be doing its job continuously and effectively, and doesn't necessarily need any of these liver detox protocols. If we can optimize the function of our liver and what we're actually requiring the liver to clear out, our livers should be perfectly fine. There are evidence-based things we can do to support our liver that don't include a $120 liver cleanse. Our job is to continuously support the function of the liver of 24-hour cleansing all the time. It does cleanse 24 hours a day. We don't necessarily need to be giving it anything else that can help that cleansing. Our job is to support the process that it's already doing and try to reduce what could possibly be burdening it, not to periodically shock it into a performance that it's already doing on its own. And hint, a lot of these recommendations and ways that we can support our liver cost almost nothing. Number one, cruciferous vegetables. So things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, all support liver detoxification. In women specifically, it was found that these cruciferous vegetables are associated with lower pro inflammatory markers. But overall, fiber diversity is super important. Getting a lot of different food sources that have fiber as a component, super important. The two other things you can do to help support the liver are adequate hydration and, of course, sleep quality. So, the concept of liver cleansing or liver detoxification through a supplement stack or a juice cleanse is not a clinical category. The liver detoxes continuously 24 hours a day. We just need to be able to do the things that support it and reduce the things that we're eating or the behaviors that we're doing that might be burdening it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode on the liver, alcohol, our hormones, our female physiology. I feel like it's a fun take to look at this organ that not a lot of people talk about, but I really do hear about it a lot from some of the more woo-woo wellness and health educators and influencers and business owners that I hear on different podcasts or Substack articles. But they all seem to think the liver will be the next thing that we all start to care about, just like we all are becoming more and more aware of our gut health and the gut brain axis and all of the things that current supplements and culture are promoting in the wellness industry. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys next week as we talk about spring cleaning, the system that is in charge of why you pick up your phone out of habit and just start scrolling without actually realizing you're doing it. So I'll see you next week on Wellness Big Sis the Pod.